Welcome to Garden Delights. I'm Susan Howington, Family Consumer Science Agent with the Henry County Cooperative Extension Service. And today we're going to talk about carrots, and I'm also going to share a recipe with you following after our break. But first I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. We're going to talk about carrots and the benefits, and then we're going to also hear from Frank Hancock, our Natural Resource Agent, and he's going to tell you a little bit about gardening, and when we come back we'll put together our recipe. Today I told you we were going to talk a little bit about carrots, and they have great benefits to them, and one of them is the vitamin A and vitamin C. Vitamin A is the one we kind of hear a lot about as far as in carrots, and they have the beta carotene, and the beta carotene is turned into vitamin C once it hits our liver. And you always hear about carrots, and we're supposed to eat a lot of carrots because it's good for our eyes, and that's the reason why it is good for our eyes, because of the beta carotene. And once it hits our pigment of our eyes, then we have a chance to have a better vision at night vision. And I don't know about you, but I need good night vision when I'm driving. So carrots are a wonderful benefit as far as the vitamin A goes, and of course the vitamin C also. Now let's talk about selecting those carrots. When you're selecting carrots, even in your garden or out in the stores, you want to make sure that you're looking at the carrots and make sure they are firm, and you want to make sure they're not limp, because if they are, that tells you the carrots are probably going into the bad stage. So you want to make sure they're very firm. And then once you see that, and you can look, if you want to buy the ones with the stems, you can. You don't have to. But these carrots that we have today on our show are fresh from the garden that we picked this morning. And so when you're looking at your carrots and you want to store them after you've picked them up and bought them, you want to make sure that you store them in a Ziploc container, and you want to also make sure that you cut the heading part off, because you don't want that part to go on there. So you want to make sure you cut that off, because that's going to help it store longer, and it stores in your refrigerator for about 10 days, and that's your best bet as far as keeping your carrots fresh. And when we come back, we're going to talk about our recipe, but before we do that, Frank's going to talk a little bit more about our gardening.
We're going to continue talking about our gardening today. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things we need to consider as we get close to the season here. One is soil temperature, and the other is the last frost date. I get a lot of calls about this time of the year. People want to know when the last frost date is. That's kind of hard to predict, somewhere around towards the end of March, but I will tell you, I went back and looked at 22 years worth of it, and about 40% of the last frost date was in that first week of April. So you need to keep that in mind as you're figuring out when you're going to be setting your transplants out and that sort of thing. The other thing I want to talk about is soil temperature. Soil temperature is very important as far as getting your seed to germinate like they're supposed to. And some of your cold crops, they can withstand temperatures down in the 45, 50 degree range, while some of your other things like corn and tomatoes, they'd prefer for it to be up closer to 60. You might get by at 58 or somewhere in there. And then some of your warmer season crops like your beans and your okra, they're going to prefer the soil temperature to be up around 65, somewhere in that range. So you need to take that into account. It's especially important this year because a lot of you plant your garden on Good Friday. And Good Friday is just the date that you pick to plant it. The problem is Good Friday is a little bit early this year, so we need to be taking a look at the soil temperature. You can get you a fairly inexpensive temperature gauge to check the soil temperature at about the 4-inch depth. We want to put our thermometer in there and make sure that we're getting into the range where our optimal germination is going to be. If you plant this stuff when it's too cold, you're going to have a lot of skips. It's not going to do well. If you put your transplants out too early, you're going to get hit by frost. So all of those things have to be in your mind. We've got brochures. In fact, I just got my 2013 vegetable handbook for the Southeast United States. This is an extension publication they send out to county agents. So if you want to see this, you have to come see me, my office, and we'll look at it. But in addition to this, we also have a lot of information, a lot of brochures and things about how to grow different vegetables. I got some corn and okra here with me today. We've also got some fairly elaborate vegetable gardening calendars. I think we're going to be talking about some carrots later on here, and you can see carrots here can be planted anywhere from January 15th to the end of March, and you can also plant them again in the fall for some fall gardening. A lot of times you'll get better germination on your fall garden on some of these cold crops. So our temperature here is looking like it's a little bit over 40, 42, 43 degrees. So it's a little bit cold on this particular day for us to start trying to plant some of these crops that are going to require a little bit warmer temperature. So pay attention to that. Now, if you're like me and you don't want to get a soil thermometer and you don't want to get out here and try to figure out what the temperature is, you can go on the Georgia weather site. That site is Georgia Environmental Monitoring Network. It's an automated weather site, Georgia Automated Environmental Monitoring Network. And that will tell you in real time within a day or two of what the soil temperature is. Now, our closest weather reporting station is probably Griffin. Hartsfield might be a little closer to us, but Hartsfield doesn't do any soil testing because it's all asphalt out there, I guess. But so Griffin probably is where you want to look. So when you pull this up, you go to weather calculators on the side, and it gives you a long list of things. You can look at the last frost date, you can look at the soil temperature, you can look at the precipitation. It's all there for you. You just sit there and pick and choose. Now, you don't want to look at your average soil temperature because your average soil temperature is not what we want to plant by. We want to plant by what is the temperature right here in this range where we're about to plant. So I think that's, you've already done your soil sample. You already know that you got to put a certain amount of fertilizer down that needs to go down prior to planting your crop. Incorporate it in, same thing with your lime. Then get your plants out and get your seed planted. And then we can talk about the particular crops at another time when we want to start talking about how we side dress them and add a little nitrogen. Corn's going to need to be side dressed when it's a little less than knee high with some ammonium nitrate. Tomatoes, on the other hand, can operate with some 10-10-10. They don't want a lot of nitrogen, or you'll wind up growing some 20-foot tall tomato plants and not have any tomatoes on them. You can do the same thing to okra sometimes. I get calls about both of those every year. But that's just our tip for this month. Just keep on working. It's time to get the garden tilled up and get ready to plant. Okay, let's talk about tilling up the garden. It's time to get it tilled. We're going to look at this soil a little bit here. We'd like to get some organic matter turned into it from the compost pile, from mulches, from cover crops, however you can do it. Over time, you want your garden soil to get built up. And what we're looking for here is some soil that has tilth, is what we call it. I can make a ball out of this soil. It'll hold together. It's firm enough to hold together, but with the least amount of pressure, it just falls apart. That, compared to some of your clay soils where you make a ball, that would get kind of dangerous if you try to throw it at somebody. So this is what we're looking for. We'd like to have about 5% organic matter, and you can see organic matter in this soil. That the plant has got to have oxygen in order to grow, and the soil tilth is important to provide oxygen to the plant, and the water can circulate in here and give the plant a good bed to grow in. And so that is our goal as we build up our soil in the garden. So it's time for you to get out there and get it plowed up now, and we'll talk about the specific plants at a later date.
Okay, so let's talk about the honey glazed carrots. I've already prepped some of the carrots already, and they're in our casserole dish, but I'm going to show you what I've done just to add to that. Carrots, you know, definitely have to be washed, and you also have to take some had a grater, or you can take your knife, however you want to do it, to scrape out the skin, because you want to make sure you scrape off the skin. It needs to be washed because these do grow on the ground, and we want to make sure that any soil is off of it. So we're going to just take the end off of it. Now you can, if you want to, you can leave a little bit of the green just to add color to your dish. And I'm going to trim off the edge of the end of it. And what I did is, some people may like the recipe, so I'm going to show you this, that you can also take carrots and you can slice them. So what I've done is I've sliced, and this may be what you would like as far as your casserole, but I chose to do strips today. So all I did, and I just took a knife and I cut it down the center of the carrot. And once I did that, I did it one more time down that center. So I'm going to have 4 pieces of that carrot. So once I do that, and like I said, these carrots are straight from the garden this morning, and these are really tender carrots, so they're not going to take that long to cook. So I'm just going to lay those with the rest of these carrots. So this is about a pound of carrots or a little better. So depending on your size of your carrot, about 8 medium carrots is about a pound of carrots once you chop them up too. So we're going to keep that in mind as we're putting it together. And also, if you're serving a big crowd, you may want to double this recipe, or depending on the crowd that you're going to be serving. But this serves about 6 to 8 people. So the first thing we're going to do to add to the recipe, we've got our carrots already chopped up, and we're going to add some orange juice. Now, I picked orange juice. You do not have to pick orange juice. You can pick pineapple juice. And if you don't have orange juice or pineapple juice, most people have lemon juice in their refrigerator. So you also can use that too. But I chose the orange juice, and it takes 1/4 of a cup of orange juice. And then I'm going to add 1/4 of a cup of honey. And the good thing about these squeeze top containers, you don't have to worry about it going all over the place. And I love honey. Now, I always tell you that my father has honeybees, so I try to, when I go see him, get honey as much as I can, because I just love honey on just anything, and it's just another way of sweetening something up besides using your sugar. So I'm going to put the 1/4 cup of honey into with the orange juice. I'm going to mix this around. And once I mix this around, I'm going to toss it with the carrots. Now, I'm using a spatula, but you could use a whisk, and I do have a whisk, but I'm just going to try doing it this way, and hopefully I won't make too big of a mess. And you just want to mix this up really well. And I can smell the orange, and it smells really good, the orange juice. So if you like orange juice, hopefully you'll like this. But if you're not a big orange juice person, you know, like I said, the other options are out there. So I have it mixed up, and what I'm going to do is move this out of the way a little bit. I'm going to pour this over the carrots, and then I'm going to toss them just a little bit just to make sure it's covered. I want to get all that honey out, so I really like honey. Okay. Take this same spatula, and what I'm going to do is just kind of mix them around to make sure it's covered really good. And that looks pretty good. It looks like they're all kind of wet with the honey and the juice. And then for the recipe, you can add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. So I'm going to just a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. So this is up to you as far as what you like on your carrots. But this is what we're going to do today, is just put a little salt and pepper on it. And then the carrots are ready. How simple is that? So carrots are great. You know, this is easy as far as a bake, but you don't have to bake carrots. You know, you can eat them raw. They're great raw. They also are great raw because they can clean your teeth if you're looking for a way to clean your teeth pretty fast if you're eating them at your workplace. So there's a great little source of vitamin A and vitamin C for our diet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up putting this in the oven, and when we come back, I'm going to have Frank Hancock come back and taste our carrots with us. Welcome back. Just to finish up on our honey glazed carrots, you do need to cover it while it's cooking. You're going to cook it for 40 minutes in a preheated oven for 350 degrees. So we're going to try the carrots now. So Frank, what do you think?
Ooh, they look pretty good.
So let's put
Look a little better than they did when we pulled them out of the garden this morning.
That's right. And thanks for sharing all those good garden tips too. We appreciate that. So we're just going to take a little bit and I'm going to touch it with my hand. Hopefully it won't be too hot, Frank, once we taste them. But they look really good. And you can't beat fresh carrots from the garden. So let's get a little bit more. And, all right, Frank, hand me your plate and I'll put you some on there and see what you think. All right. Of course, I've got to taste some also. And this recipe, you'll be able
nice
to...
and tender.
Yes, it is. I was worried I gave you a knife, but I think they're going to be fine just to cut them with your fork. And like I said, that 40 minutes can be adjusted depending on the tenderness that you really want. Some people may want it crunchy, and some people may want it more like tender like Frank and I are eating. So what do you think, Frank?
Very good.
Very sweet.
Bugs Bunny, be proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so some more information about carrots and the recipe, you can go to the website and download the recipe if you're interested in it, and you'll see it on the screen. We really appreciate you watching our Garden Delights.